Alright, this is chapter 26, Money, part 1. So the reserves of a bank include, so the two things that make up reserves are cash, and then we want cash equivalents. And the one thing that we consider cash equivalents in the macroeconomic context are deposits held on account at the Bank of Canada. So when you deposit your money at your bank, like I'm with BMO or whatever, BMO isn't going to hold all that in their bank because they don't want to get robbed. A lot of it they put in the Bank of Canada, which is, I don't even know where it is. Who knows? You can't rob that as easily, right? That's like our Fort Knox. So those are pretty much cash, and we consider those reserves because they're not loaned out. The two things a bank can do when it gets your money is it can hold some of it. It's got to hold some of it, and the rest of it it's going to loan out as mortgages and various things, various loans that they deem good. And how they make money is then they're going to charge a higher rate for their interest rate on their loan than they're going to give you. So when you deposit your money at the bank, you maybe make like 1-2%, but they're going to charge those loans like 6-7%. So they're going to make that difference. They're going to make money. So we consider banks to be profit seekers. And the amount that they loan out, each bank has a target reserve ratio that is set by the Bank of Canada. How reserve ratios work is our reserve ratio is equal to reserves over deposits. So if you deposit $10 and they have a 10% reserve ratio, what that means, so if you deposit $10 and the RR is 10%, then they're going to hold $1 in reserves because 10% of 10 is 1. So they're going to hold $1 in reserves, and the rest they're going to loan out. They're going to loan out $9. And what we see is that this keeps happening over and over and over again. So that $9 that they loan out, now that's $9 new dollars that they put into the economy. And what we assume is that there is no cash drain. So what that means is that all the money then goes back to the bank, right? The bank loans out that $9 to someone, and they immediately go and put it back in the bank. So now they have $9 of new deposits, and 10% of $9 is 0.9, which means you can loan out again $8.1, and that keeps happening over and over and over again. So what we see is that they created a lot more money than was originally shown, and I'll go over the formula for the total amount that they created in my next video, because I don't have that number off the top of my head, but I'll get it for my next one. So that is question 1 there. What is the main purpose of the Canadian Deposit Insurance Corporation? So what that is quite simply any money that you've put in a bank under 100K, they're going to insure for you. You're going to keep that money. So what's important is that they are Canadian dollars, and these are in member institutions. It's not just any bank, right? If you give your friend $100,000, they may be a bank, but they aren't a member of the CDIC, so you're not eligible. And that's for anything under $100,000. So for $100,000. So you might think like, oh, does that mean like if you put $2 million into a bank account that you're not insured? No, not necessarily. What that just means is you're going to have to split up your income. You're going to have to split up your money, into multiple banks, multiple bank accounts. That becomes a lot more work, but hey, if you're a millionaire, you can probably afford someone to do that for you, right? Which of the following entries would appear on the liabilities side of the Bank of Canada's balance sheet? So the liabilities, when you deposit money at the bank, you are essentially giving them like a loan, kind of, right? That they have to immediately pay back when you want it. So your deposit is considered a liability for banks. your deposit is considered a liability for banks, in which they will keep some of it in reserves and some of it in loans. And remember that assets always equals liabilities, right? We know that from accounting. There's no shareholders' equity in this case. And if there was actually, sometimes there's capital. It would be on this side over here. Sometimes there's capital. I don't really know why, but yeah. Next question. So what are the reserves held by Bank West? So reserves are just cash plus deposits at the Bank of Canada. So 500 plus 700 equals 1,200. Next one. So this one, I'm actually right. The textbook's wrong. He went over this in our review class. I don't know if you guys were there. And he said that this question it's really tricky and it doesn't make a lot of sense, and that he wouldn't be inclined to put it on an exam. But basically, what happens is this is what it's going to look like initially, right? Our deposits equal our reserves plus loans. It says that we have a target reserve ratio of 10%, and there is no cash drain. And then they take out 10. They take out 10, so deposits become 90. Right away, assets are 0 and loans are 90, right? Because you take it out of reserves. Our loans are loaned out. You can't give those back. So what's going to happen? The bank is going to have to decrease their loans. If it's a 10% reserve ratio, that means they're going to have to decrease it by 9. Or in this case, 90 million, but a 9 kind of thing. Just like that, and then they would have to decrease it. So don't worry about this question too much. It's not a midterm level question, and he said that he'd have to accept multiple answers. Don't worry about it too much. This one, kind of subjective. I guess I didn't get the right answer right away, but it's talking about the major advantage of using money. The major advantage. So the use of money significantly reduces transaction costs. That's what they were trying to get at here. Just before we had money, we used things like gold. Didn't really make sense to carry around a whole bag of gold, right? It was too heavy. There was a big transaction cost to having it. You had to have all this gold on you. So that's why money's good, among many other things. Let's talk about what money is for a second. So there's 3 characteristics kind of for money. It has to be a unit of exchange, a unit of account, and a store of value. So there's a question that comes up in one of the tests or something that's like, why is Bitcoin not considered money? Why is Bitcoin not considered money, right? And we can say, well, it's not really a unit of exchange. It's kind of like a stock, right? I can't say, oh, I'd like to buy a muffin with this Bitcoin, with this stack. Like, that's not something with this stock, it's not something that we have yet in our economy anyway. So it's not a unit of exchange. Is it a unit of account? No, not really either. If we go over the definition for a unit of account, doesn't really have a definition here, but I think the main thing here is that it's not a unit of exchange, whether it's a unit of account or store of value or not. Another thing that isn't here, but we generally consider to be one of the characteristics of money, is it can't fluctuate too widely, right? Like in Venezuela right now, they have crazy inflation. So your $1 today is worth like 3 cents in 2 weeks. It's insane how much their inflation is. So they actually don't use their currency. They just use US dollars because their currency just fluctuates too rapidly. It's not a good unit of exchange because it's not an accurate store of value either. You can't store your value in it because your value is immediately going down. That's why they don't use Venezuelan money. What are excess reserves for a commercial bank? So excess reserves are just any reserves that we have in excess of the desired reserves, and we determine the desired reserves through the reserve ratio that usually the Bank of Canada sets. The bank doesn't set themselves. So consider the following list of entries that may appear on the balance sheet of the commercial bank. What are the total assets on the balance sheet? So there's a couple ways to think about this. But the way I'd like to think about it, though, that makes it the simplest, is that our assets equal our liabilities, right? So these are all of our assets and liabilities, which means if we add those up and divide them by 2, we should have the same amount on either side. So if you add all these up and divide by 2, you get this number here. And that's the same number for assets and liabilities. But we'll go through and we'll put them on either side, just so you guys know where they are. So shareholders' equity would be on the liabilities side. The liabilities side, we talked about that as capital. So shareholders' equity of 200. And an easy way to do this and make sure you get it right is we're just going to add them up at the end. Demand deposits. So we talked about deposits. They are, again, a liability. A liability. Deposits. Next, foreign currency reserves. Reserves are an asset that we have. 2,000. Then deposits at the Bank of Canada. We know that to be part of our reserves, which is an asset. Next, mortgage loans. Again, asset. Loans are an asset. Us loaning things to other people are an asset. Novice term deposits. Any deposits, 1,200 over here. Over here. And cash reserves, 210. I can't remember where that 60 goes, so we'll just add these up. And we'll see which side it goes. We'll see, because government deposits might be tricky. 2,000 plus 50 plus 700. Oops. 2,000 plus 50 plus 700 plus 210. That gives us our 2690. Or 2960, sorry. 2960. Which means that government deposits are the same as any other deposits. And they go over here. And we'll check that. 200 plus 1,500 plus 1,200 plus 60 gives us our 2960. So our balance sheet is balanced, and that's that. Next one here, the largest element of the Canadian money supply today. That's just something to remember. There's more money in the bank than there is in circulation. So the biggest part is bank deposits, not coins, not paper money, not gold. And definitely not the debt of the federal government. That is not in the money supply. It's the opposite of money supply. Okay, this one tripped a couple people up when they asked me about it before, so I'll go through it. So if the Bank North receives a new deposit of $400, its actual reserve ratio immediately becomes, so remember our reserve ratio is our reserves over deposits. Reserves over deposits. So, AL. I'm not going to write them all down, but we know that we got a new deposit of $400. So that means our deposits are now $2,400, right? We just add $400. But our assets have to equal our liabilities. So what that means is we also get an asset. Where is that asset? We don't loan it out, then it's immediately in our reserves. In our reserves, which makes our RR equal to 700 over 2,400, which gives us our 29%. 29% right there. And that's it for part 1.